Coming up on this week's show. I'm all at sea on board the world's biggest cruise ship, meeting the man who has to feed up to 9,000 people every night.
No pressure?
Absolutely not, no. No pressure at all.
And I find out why it pays to be cool and collected up on the bridge.
Well, first we try to keep it as calm as possible and not so exciting.
Simon's here with advice on the best way to backpack through South America. And we take a trip back in time aboard China's last surviving steam train. We start this week at sea, where holidays afloat are enjoying a boom right now. Thanks in part to a fleet of megaships that are being built and designed specifically to attract a new generation of younger, fun-loving cruisers.
Behind me is the biggest of them all, the Symphony of the Seas. She makes her maiden voyage this month, and I'm going to jump aboard for a sneak preview.
The scale of this ship is truly vast. She can carry close to 9,000 passengers and crew. She's longer than 4 football pitches laid end to end, weighs over 220,000 tons, and she has a staggering 18 decks and 23 swimming pools. Constructed at shipyards in France at a cost of over $1.5 billion, Symphony of the Seas is the biggest passenger cruise ship ever built. But does that make it the best?
Now at this point I have a bit of a confession to make. This is not my first cruise. In fact, I'm a bit of a fan, so I'm keen to see how this one measures up.
I'm jumping on board a special 2-night cruise between the Spanish ports of Malaga and Barcelona, along with a big group of travel journalists and industry experts, to explore the ship before she welcomes her first paying passengers. And although there's a party atmosphere on board, the crew know this is an important event if the ship is going to make waves around the world.
These corridors go on forever, which is not surprising because there are almost 3,000 rooms on this ship. So finding your own room can be a bit of a challenge. And this is mine, I think, 592. Have a look. It's quite spacious, actually. And a lot of bad view.
Most rooms here on the ship are a pretty standard size, although you'll pay extra for a balcony and sea view. And if you really want to push the boat out, there's a whole range of upscale suites with a suitably enormous price tag to match. But it's the seemingly endless array of dining options, entertainment and attractions on board that really set this ship apart.
This is the 4th ship in the class. It's called the Oasis class. We introduced the first one back in 2010, and they're just huge hits. I mean, the demand for these kinds of vacation experiences is growing. They're very popular. We have a metric that measures customer satisfaction, and these ships literally knock it out of the park.
Tonight's special sailing is due to get underway around 9 o'clock at night. But before we slip anchor, the party atmosphere's already kicking in.
I'm at the Bionic Bar, where there's no human bartending staff, but we do have 2 robots, Rock'em and Shock'em, who will make my drink for me. I've found a lovely sounding drink, which is the Bionic Bahama Mama. And all I need to do is press this button and the robots will go to work. So off we go. Oh, there we go. Now, I think it's going to be the shaking. There we go. Hey. A little a bit of spillage, a bit of dripping. It's a bit messy, this robot bartender. And here we go, the finished product. Oh, look at this, my drink. Thank you, Shockham. Well, we're setting off. Soon the lights of Malaga there are going to disappear into the distance. Next stop, Barcelona.
The following morning, it's up early to try some of those onboard attractions aimed at making this ship as family-friendly as possible. First stop, the Abyss. At 100 feet, it's the longest tubular slide at sea and sends you plummeting a full 10 decks in as many seconds.
The zip line is 82 feet long, and it goes from deck 16 down to deck 15. On a good busy sea day, we put through hundreds of people, and of course it's available for all ages, but you have to be minimum of 6 and you have to be 52 inches.
Over the past 10 years, the cruise industry has undergone something of a revolution as it tries to move away from its traditional stuffy image and appeal more to younger holiday makers and families. Gone are the days when some slot machines and fizzy drinks were expected to keep the kids happy.
3, 2, 1, go!
And if all that activity builds up your appetite, then there's 22 restaurants, cafes and bars on board. Some of them open around the clock, all operated under the watchful eye of Gary Thomas.
I guess you have to provide a really wide array of food for people who are going to have very different tastes.
Absolutely, of course, and that's where my knowledge comes in. We do have fixed restaurants. We have Mexican-themed, seafood-themed restaurants, but in the public buffet areas is where I have lots of freedom, and everything I do is about the guest demographics, and I have all this information prior to the voyages, so I can adjust a lot of what we do based on the guests that we carry.
You've been a chef on land for a long time, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
and now you're on sea.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you face when you're out on the sea?
Well, if you run out of food at sea,
There's no running
nowhere
into
to
it, is there?
run. It's you have to get it right all the time. You have to anticipate what's going to happen on board many cruises in advance. I have to order my food, so if I miss a particular item, a popular item, I go from the most popular man on the ship to very quickly the most unpopular man on the ship.
It's not hard to see why this formula of all-inclusive food, fun and sun on a gigantic scale is proving increasingly popular. But some people aren't as delighted to see this mammoth new style of ship take to the seas.
With cruise ships growing bigger and bigger, it's perhaps not surprising that concerns have been raised about the environmental impact they're having.
Firstly, there's the issue of pollution. It's said that the maritime-grade diesel that many cruise ships use causes far more emissions than the fuel used back on dry land. The cruise industry says it's doing what it can to capture and filter these emissions, but campaigners claim they could do more. And then there's also the criticism of the huge amount of waste that some of these floating resorts create.
Waste to landfill on our fleet of ships is close to zero. And often I'm asked the question about, well, you know, these ships are so big and there's a lot of waste and everything. I often liken a ship of this size to a small village or a town, and I would challenge any small village or town to put their environmental footprint up against a ship of this size.
And what about the social and cultural impact of a ship this large turning up at possibly a quite small port?
Again, we're a community, we're taking people on vacation, they have happy times, and you have to have dialogue and communication with all destinations. When we're encountering a destination that says, well, hang on guys, we think the ship's too big, let's talk about it. Let's understand what that is. Is there a way of solving for it, or should we just avoid that destination? We're looking for win-win. We want people to be happy. We live in our communities. We don't want to cause people any concern. and we work very hard to try to achieve that.
Late last year, local protesters in Venice turned out in force to say they've had enough of visiting cruise ships. They tried to block the city's port with a floating blockade to draw attention to the strain mass tourism is putting on Venice's already fragile architecture and infrastructure.
These cruise ships are 6 times taller than the tallest house of Venice. Please, jump in a gondola, jump in a Venetian boat that are small, that are respectful of the scale of the city. Come in a small boat and don't come with these monsters that really are destroying our city.
And although Venice isn't currently on this cruise ship's itinerary, some protesters on the Spanish island of Majorca aren't happy that she'll be regularly visiting their capital city of Palma. There's no doubt that for some people, cruising is a great way to see the world, travelling in comfort as you tick off multiple destinations over the course of a week or two. By 2020, it's estimated that 27 million of us per year will decide to holiday this way, so expect to see more of these super ships take to the seas over the coming years. But let's hope that through dialogue and maybe more regulation, everyone stays happy, not just the holiday makers.
Still to come on the travel show.
Coming up, I head to the bridge to meet the man who captains this colossal cruise ship.
Well, first we try to keep it as calm as possible and not so exciting.
And we travel to China to chug back in time on board their last remaining scheduled steam train.
So, see you after the break.
Well, I am on the bridge of the world's largest cruise ship. And here I have Captain Rob, who is in charge of this whole ship. And hopefully you can show me through some of the exciting different bells and whistles that are going on here at the bridge.
Sure, with pleasure.
So I would think the bridge of a ship as big as this would be bustling with activity, but it seems very calm and not too many people up here. What are these guys doing?
Well, first we try to keep it as calm as possible and not so exciting. But First Officer Anton, he's driving the ship right now. He has the con. Assisting him is Second Officer Dario. And together they're navigating the ship at the moment. And here we have displayed in front of us many different systems, from propulsion systems to navigation systems, including the radar, electronic charts, and all of them monitoring various aspects. You'll see our 3 pods, our ASI pods as we call them, azimuthing pods. And right now we're turning 75 RPM on all 3 of them. They're pointed forward because they pull. They pull the ship along, even though they're on the stern where traditional propellers and rudders would be. At 75 RPM, we're making 15 knots, and that's actually 14.9 through the water, which is quite good. We have the wind with us, and you can see white caps out there, but if you look to the next screen, you'll see that we have only about 7 knots of wind across the deck. We can be pointed this way, but actually going this way, because of the current and wind is always moving the ship around. We're not connected rigidly to the earth, we're sliding along through the sea. Same with the speed through the water and the speed over the ground. They're generally different as well, for the same reasons. Everything around them and above them serves a purpose. Some more than others. Some are just light dimmers. Others are communication, searchlight control, ship's whistle, all of the above. It's all there. It might all look similar, but it's quite different.
Welcome to the slice of the show that tackles your questions about getting the best out of travel. Coming up, seeing America in 2 weeks. First though, cruise passengers may be delighted to learn that India's e-visa scheme is now allowed for arrival by sea as well as air. You can sail into the ports of Mumbai, Goa, Cochin, Mangalore or Chennai. Next, Geraldine Harding in Kuala Lumpur has this question.
I would love to see as much of North America in 2 weeks as possible. I fly into Boston and out from LA.
Divide your trip into 3 segments. First, the East Coast Heritage Trail. Start in Boston, the birthplace of independence, and end up in Washington, D.C., calling at New York City and Philadelphia. All of those places are connected by fast trains. Then, take a 4-hour flight across the Midwest and the prairies to the mile-high city of Denver with a wonderful view of the Rockies. Step aboard the Californian Zephyr train, ending up in San Francisco as the sun sets on the Golden Gate. Then go by train, plane or automobile south along the Pacific coast to Los Angeles, a wonderful sprawl with highlights that include Venice Beach, Santa Monica and of course Hollywood. Finally, Mina in London has a friend backpacking through South America.
She's asked me to join her for the next stretch of the trip, covering Bolivia, Peru and Colombia. What are the basics?
Check the latest Foreign Office advice for any particular hazards and devour guidebooks. My personal highlights include Lake Titicaca, divided by Bolivia and Peru, the ancient Inca capital, Cuzco, the Amazon, and if you can possibly manage it, a river trip from Iquitos in Peru downstream to Leticia in Colombia. Buy an open jaw ticket into La Paz and out of Cartagena. And get plenty of American currency. The US dollar is king in Latin America. Whether you're going budget backpacking or wanting to live the high life, the BBC Travel Show is here to help. So email the Travel Show at bbc.co.uk and I'll do my very best to find you an answer. From me, Simon Calder, the Global Guru, bye for now and see you next time.
To finish this week, we've got the first in a series of films from China. A country that's undergone massive change over recent decades as it moves to modernise. But if you know where to look, some glimpses of the past remain. And we've headed to the Sichuan province to take a step back in time.
这是中国最后一列蒸汽火车。
我们城市人的生活节奏是比较快的，感觉压力非常大，但对于我们父辈来说，就是说他们的生活以前是非常艰辛的，所以都想去看一看他们以前到底是怎样生活的。
我叫胡建章，是当地的一个村民。小火车作为当地的重要的交通的出行的工具，通过乘小火车认识了我现在的爱人，就是现在的妻子。结婚已经30年。所以说小火车是我们的姻缘，也是个姻缘，所以说很愉快。
如果这种乘坐这个蒸汽小火车的旅游方式消失了，我可能会感觉非常的遗憾吧。因为这种 它可以说是我们工业革命的一个活化石也是我们展示就是缅怀过去的一种方式，让我们体会到以前父辈的一个生活。因为对于我来说，可能我想我更多的朋友，或者说包括我以后的小孩、家人之类的，我可能都会想带他们过来体验一下。
煤矿，它是煤炭是资源是有限的，通过旅游转行、转型发展，那么解决很大一部分他们朝阳煤矿的职工的收入，游客越来越多，对我们的村里面，对当地的居民，应该说是一个很大的好事情，因为东西好卖了，是吧？不管是饭馆的生意也好，当地村民的农副产品也好卖了，那么这当地的村民、居民经济收入就提高了，这令我们很高兴。真的很高兴。
Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's show, but do join us next week when
Henry heads to Australia to meet the people behind the world-famous Flying Doctor service as they celebrate an important anniversary.
Oh, what a remarkable bit of kit you got here.
And we head back to China to discover a novel way of skiing that's claimed to be over 8,000 years old.
That's next week, but in the meantime, don't forget you can catch up with us while we're out on the road or the sea in real time by signing up to our social media feeds, where you can also share your travel stories with the world. But for now, from me, Crystal Arwood, and the rest of the Travel Show team here somewhere in the Mediterranean, it's goodbye.